And welcome back into yet another live edition of the Cowboys Report. I am Tom Downey, producer AP, behind the scenes on today's show. Although not technically announced by the Giants, because I guess it hasn't been put pen to paper yet, John Harbaugh is going to be the next Giants head coach. They're already working their way through staff adjustments, and I think it's just negotiating the fine print of the contract, everything else there. So we have the four head coaches. Who is the best head coach in the NFC East? DQ for Dan Quinn, NS for Nick Sirianni. I bet we get 0 votes for NS. JH for John Harbaugh, BS for Brian Schottenheimer. Let me know in the comments section of today's show, DQ, NS, JH, or BS. A lot of BS's in there. A JH from Ecuador man, AOG. That would be my betting favorite to pick Harbaugh there. What's up, Aiden?
This is a Cowboys channel, but I got to be objective here. I still got the jury out on Brian Schottenheimer. After 1 year, I feel like you need more time to see what he's really cooking there. Liked some things that I saw. Didn't like some of the play calling down the stretch. But he's definitely not the worst. I agree Nick Sirianni's the worst. I think John Harbaugh just wins those. So I'd probably say, as of right now, he's the best. But ask me again in a year.
DQ, NS, JH, BS. A lot of BS's in the comment section of today's show, which I'm not surprised by. The pinned poll, though, a little bit different. There are some votes for Nick Sirianni. There are a couple votes for Dan Quinn. 37% vote Harbaugh, 49% now voting in favor of Brian Schottenheimer. So vote in the comment section and vote in the pinned poll as well, as Charles Wood just types in bullshit, which is funny. It's fine. It's the initials, right? That's how it goes. We will check in on the number one Cowboys story. That is the defensive coordinator search. It remains ongoing. Do you guys think that Brian Flores will end up interviewing for the Cowboys defensive coordinator job? Y for yes, N for no. I know he hasn't yet, but as we'll get into, and it may be copium on my part, that doesn't mean he's not going to interview. I have a potential reason for it. We'll see if that ends up being true or not, but I would be hesitant to just write it off as a possibility altogether. Even though I do think getting him as your defensive coordinator is a long shot. And to be clear, it has always been a long shot. So will Dallas interview Brian Flores for DC? Y for yes, N for no. Decent split on this one. No's from Nintendo Master, Dallas, Ecuador man, Home, Brendan. Yeses from Charles Woods, Terry Turner, Fred Williams, Charles Woods. Let's see what else we got in there. I mentioned Fred Williams. I got a $5 super chat coming in from Jotman as well in just a second, but get those votes in. Y for yes, N for no. Will the Cowboys interview Brian Flores for that open defensive coordinator role? No's from West Shadow, Adam Nagel. Yeses from Thomas Brooks, Dustin Cobb, Charles Woods. A no from Ty Condi as well. So get those votes in. Y for yes, N for no. Will the Cowboys interview Brian Flores for the defensive coordinator job? Hopefully the Cowboys hire Jay Harbaugh. That's not likely there. Is the URL change on you? Yeah. Gordon says yes. Bald Sasquatch says yes. The question is, will we get him? Correct. I think it is a long shot, always has been. I've always kind of viewed it as head coaching job. Stay with Minnesota. Dallas Cowboys next up. I have a potential reason again for why he interviewed for the Commanders job and not others, but we'll see on that front. Y for yes, N for no. Will the Cowboys interview Brian Flores for the open defensive coordinator gig? $5 from Jotman. Ready to lose later to the Giants, and when he does, get ready to learn Gannon. I would be a little frustrating, or a little annoyed probably, if that happened. Leonhard, I will say, we've talked about this before. It's not like Leonhard was a lock at any point. I still think staying in Denver is a very real possibility for him. But if you want the top defensive coordinator candidates, well, guess what? Other teams are also going to want them. So we'll see how things play out with the Giants. We'll talk about Jim Leonhard on today's show. The one benefit here is the Cowboys got the early start on it in a way the Giants did not. And as of right now, there's been no interview. And there's some timing issues the Giants potentially run into there as well. Oh, Marks has hired Jim Harbaugh. Well, that's not happening, but fun. Super chat menu. Any super is a shout out. $20 for the shot and $50 for the beer bong. That is the discounted off-season super chat menu on today's show. We mentioned Leonhard. We mentioned Brian Flores. Who do you want as the next Cowboys defensive coordinator? By the way, Jim Leonhard, what was I going to say? Jonathan Gannon is not my top target. I plan on doing ranking all the interviews. They're in phase 1. There's a lot more to come. But Gannon is going to be at best right in the middle. And that's because I don't want Aaron Wycott. That's a big factor in it. I would almost, and there are elements, I would rather gamble on the unknown than just do Gannon, which I think we are all overly burned by the Matt Eberflus thing, but I think there are better candidates that are worth taking a crack on there. So who do you want? Morris, Leonhard, or Flores? 3 good names. Well, I don't think Raheem Morris is going to get a head coaching job, but I do think he's going to let that process play out and then revisit because, the last defensive coordinator job he had might very well open back up with the Rams. That would not be a surprise to me. And that's one of those, you can't compete with the Rams for Raheem Morris. That would be a more logical fit. Dave Wannstedt, now we're just naming. Dave Wannstedt was last guy you hired that wasn't 45 years old as a DC, by the way. Which that shows you how long ago that was. Matt Patricia, if we can't get Leonhard, I'm kind of skittish on Patricia. I don't know. It was bad in Philadelphia for him. It was real bad. It wasn't all his fault, but concerning to me. Let's put it that way. Jim Leonhard in there. Jim Leonhard, Flores, Raheem Morris. All good names. Aikman is not an option. He's never coached. He's never been a defensive coach. It's very different. He's also making $20 million a year at ESPN. So I don't think he's going to give up a whole zero to coach at that level. Now, if you offered him actual GM responsibilities, which the Cowboys aren't going to do, it's not how they operate, maybe consider, but probably not that figure anyway. So if you want the Cowboys to get this defensive coordinator hire right, which it's pretty massive for you as an organization, show it by liking the video for me right now. Coming up on today's show, the latest on that Cowboys defensive coordinator search, where things sit across the board there. The Dane Brugler 2026 NFL mock draft. We'll break it down for you, the Cowboys side of things. A mailbag, 2 ways to get on. Hashtag Cowboys, skip the line altogether, super chat. Altogether line altogether with super chat. Hashtag Cowboys. If you have defensive coordinator names, feel free to throw them in there. Just use hashtag Cowboys. Otherwise, producer AP cannot find your question. And some free agency, trade, internal, off-season rumors we'll discuss here. All coming up live on the Cowboys Report. More coaching to discuss here for the Dallas Cowboys, both news and rumors on that front. How the John Harbaugh hire by the Giants impacts things in Dallas. Some more interviews for the Cowboys as that expansive defensive coordinator search continues. And what's going on here with Brian Flores as well. Let's begin with the news. The last, call it 24 hours. It did essentially break late Wednesday night. The Giants are hiring John Harbaugh as their next head coach. That is the top head coach candidate out there and a significant and expensive get for the Giants at the head coaching spot. Look, I like this hire by New York from an outsider's perspective. I think it's a strong one. They're going to be a lot more competitive now. I don't think there were any better head coaching candidates. There might be one or two end up being better because they're unknown guys. They haven't done it before. But I think going to John Harbaugh is a huge boost for the Giants. I think we'll make them more competitive in the end. I will say I do think Jim Leonhard could be a defensive coordinator candidate for the Giants. This is a point we'll bring up on again later on in the show. Just because the Cowboys interviewed Jim Leonhard first doesn't mean that's the only destination for him. Going back to Denver, a place like the Giants, so I think they'll look at somebody like Anthony Weaver potentially as well, the Dolphins' current DC. this is a possibility. And if you want a good DC, you're probably not the only team going after said DC. So patience is going to have to be required here. So who is the best head coach right now in the NFC East? DQ for Dan Quinn, NS for Nick Sirianni, JH for John Harbaugh, or BS for Brian Schottenheimer? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. I do want to kind of tie the Giants conversation here with their interim defensive coordinator, Charlie Bolin. The Cowboys have requested to interview Bolin, and we're planning to interview him today on Thursday as the film evidence that's been announced, finalized, done, whatever. But that was the plan. The Zoom interview process continuing along here for the Cowboys. Now, of note, and I actually did not know this was the case, the Giants were not able to block Charlie Bolin from interviewing with the Cowboys because he has the interim tag. So because of that, it's not full-time. It's actually not a blockable one. Now, Mike Garafolo tweeted this out this morning, that Bolin has his supporters in the Giants building. Continuity there wouldn't surprise me. More talks on staff happening later today. That also could be as a non-defensive coordinator option. He could stick around and lose the interim title and get linebackers coach responsibility, for example. That is relevant since we also connected the Jim Leonhard, Charlie Bolin connection with the Cowboys. Could potentially be in play for the Giants. But, hey, you got 11 at minimum open defensive coordinator jobs this year. There's going to be a lot of potential overlap in your interview process. So who do you want as the next Cowboys defensive coordinator? Let me know at the pinned comment of today's video. Who do you want as the next Cowboys DC? The 9th, but also kind of 10th, name has come out for the Dallas Cowboys. That is Packers defensive line coach DeMarcus Covington. He will interview on Friday for the Cowboys defensive coordinator job. So to recap the names that we know of as of filming and knowing that things will probably continue to kind of keep flowing in here. Durante Jones, the Vikings defensive passing game coordinator, Jim Leonhard, Ephraim Banda were the initial three. The next couple names were Aaron Whitecotton, Jonathan Gannon, Zach Orr. Then things come in 3 for this team this year. Christian Parker, Charlie Bolin, and then after we'd done our Wednesday video in the evening, DeMarcus Covington. Of note, the Cowboys requested to interview Jeff Ulbrich. They were rejected. If and when he ends up becoming available again for the Falcons, I do expect the Cowboys to revisit that one and try to bring him in for an interview. Over to Covington here. He is the Packers' current defensive line coach and run game coordinator. He was the Patriots DC back in 2024. The defense wasn't really the main issue there. Longtime Bill Belichick assistant, Patriots defensive line coach, outside linebackers coach, coaching assistant. Oh, by the way, was also a college coach, continuing that trend for the Dallas Cowboys. Was, I believe, at Eastern Illinois, which brings back some fun memories of other guys who coached or played there for the Cowboys. Look, this is a real defensive coordinator search. They are not interviewing 3 or 4 people and fulfilling the Rooney Rule and hiring their guy. They actually are casting a wide net. They are, I think Schottenheimer knows, hey, this is my chance. This is clearly a heavy Schottenheimer influence list. I don't know if you got honest answers from Jerry Jones and Stephen Jones of the 10 guys they've requested, how many names they actually knew going into it. So I applaud the Cowboys that. The process is improved. Of course, as we'll discuss, it doesn't mean much if the results stink, but the step 1 of the process is better. More on that and Brian Flores to come, but today's show is brought to you by Prize Picks. Whether you're starting a new routine or making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard. But in life and on Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure playoff matchups every weekend, hoops action almost every night, it never stops. And Prize Picks lets you take control. How about a 2-pick power play touchdown here? Josh Allen, more than a half touchdown. Puka Nacua, more than a half touchdown as well. Prize Picks, by the way, now has early payouts. If your line gets off to a hot start, you have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. The new social feeds feature lets you share Prize Picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, it's good to be right. Links to the comment section and the description of today's show. Let's go in depth here on Brian Flores. And I will say, by the way, a lot of the Flores conversation can be applied to other top candidates, whether that's Jim Leonhard, who we've mentioned, or Raheem Morris, etc. I know there's a lot of talk and, to an extent, freak out over the lack of a Brian Flores interview. Josina Anderson did tweet this out last night, that Flores is still on the Cowboys' list of consideration as they continue to evaluate and research all the qualified candidates, I am told. I want to be clear. It would be super disappointing to not interview Brian Flores, especially since he's taken a DC interview with the Commanders. For every team in the market for a defensive coordinator, this is the white whale. This is the one everybody wants to get because he is awesome at what he does. But to be clear, it has always been a long shot. There is a real chance that Brian Flores ends up getting a head coaching job, and you can't compete with that. And if he does not get a head coaching job, there will be a bidding war from a variety of teams, most notably his current organization in the Minnesota Vikings. This is still something you try to do. You try to land him, you ask him for the interview, you see if you get a chance to hire him. So why haven't the Cowboys done that process yet? Why haven't they gone out and requested the interview and done the interview in the same way the Commanders have? I have a theory. I know Mike Fisher has one as well. We'll break them both down for you. For all the latest on the Cowboys defensive coordinator search, you're in the right spot. Hit that sub button if you haven't already. YouTube.com/CowboysTV. So theory number one is this. That Mike Fisher has suggested that Jerry Jones has issues with potentially hiring Brian Flores. Not the lawsuit against, in a way, Jerry. It is the entire NFL after all. But here's what Fish wrote. The concern with Jerry is he likes the culture he's created. And when he cites uncomfortability as an edge, he's talking about coaches and players being comfortable. Whereas if Brian Flores comes here, the uncomfortability might be Jerry himself. Look, that idea cannot ever be disproven because it's been the case in the past. It's a valid, logical conclusion, right? And that, of course, is unless they actually go pursue Brian Flores. That's how you disprove it. That you have to actually go do it. I do have another idea. I have another theory as to why the Cowboys haven't interviewed Brian Flores, and it revolves yet. And I do think, by the way, these two theories can be true. That Jerry is uncomfortable with the idea, could be an issue in the end, and maybe they could still interview him and see if Jerry can become a bit less uncomfortable. So will Dallas end up interviewing Brian Flores for the defensive coordinator job? Y for yes, N for no. Here's my theory. The Cowboys do want to interview Brian Flores. They do want to interview Raheem Morris. They do want to interview Jim Schwartz. But that's going to happen later in the process. The Cowboys have interviewed 9 defensive coordinator candidates. Every single one of them have been Zooms, though. They have all been virtual meetings. They have not been the in-person interviews. I guess Aaron Whitecotton could have been in person since, he's in Dallas at the Star area, but that one is its own little separate category in the end. The Commanders have interviewed 6 candidates we'll mention here in a second, these 6 candidates. At least some of them are in person, including Brian Flores, by the way. They've interviewed Flores and Carl Scott and Jonathan Gannon, or at least they're going to interview Gannon. Patrick Graham, Joe Cullen, Denard Wilson. The Commanders already hired their offensive coordinator when other teams are still in the middle of that search. The Cowboys are very, very clearly, to me, in phase 1. Now, that's we're casting our wide net, then we're going to narrow it down for the in-person interviews. The Commanders are not in that process. They are past phase 1, frankly. If you're Brian Flores, if you're Brian Schottenheimer, do either of you think, we have to do the Zoom interview? Or can you just skip that step? If you're Raheem Morris, you skip the Zoom interview for a DC and focus on your head coaching interviews. You're blocked by Jim Schwartz anyway, by the Browns for him. I think it makes some sense. Now, it's all theory and speculation, but it tracks, right? in the end, here's a big part of this entire thing. We're going to have to be patient. I know that this is new ground for pretty much all of us. The Cowboys haven't done a real defensive coordinator search in over a decade, or a real offensive coordinator search, or a real coaching search, period. All their searches have been, we interviewed the bare minimum and picked our guy immediately. Doing a wide-ranging net casting search is kind of required when you haven't gone outside your comfort zone in 15 years for a job. You have to do that, actually. And if you want any of the good defensive coordinator candidates, hey, other teams are going to want those. Because right now, the rest of the NFL, excluding the Commanders and the Cowboys, have done 0 defensive coordinator candidate interviews. They're all on their head coaching search. So there's going to be at least 11 new defensive coordinators in the NFL this year. And it's probably going to be more than that, because I bet someone like Chris Shula and Jesse Minter get hired, or Brian Flores gets hired. And that number then expands to potentially half the league is in the market for a new defensive coordinator. And all your top candidates are probably at least going to want to hear what those teams have to say as well, or if their current jobs open up for a promotion. So cast a wide net, because this probably still has a long way to go unless you can get lucky and land one of your top targets early on, but that's probably going to require some patience here. We should be cheering for the Bills, by the way, I think, because that would potentially open up Jim Leonhard. If you want Jim Leonhard, if you don't want Jim Leonhard, maybe you're okay waiting. But I think in the end, this is going to be a bit of a longer, drawn-out process. Especially like if I'm Leonhard, maybe you want to stick in Denver. Although maybe you go, I want to be a head coach in the long run, and that would allow me in Cowboys bigger market, bigger attention. That defense was terrible. I can take them to league average, and I look like the savior in a way you can't do in Denver. Just throwing that out there. Who you got in the playoffs? DENBUF. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. What's up, AP?
Tom, the eye test has shown me some things all year long and last year as well, coming out of the draft, but I saw a stat today that really confirmed it for me. Bo Nix and the Broncos are 1-8 against winning teams that average 17 points or more. I think they are fraudy. I think they lose to the Bills in this one. I got the Bills.
Assuming score 17 points in that game? Because everyone's averaging more than 17 points in the course of the season.
That's what I should have said. I misspoke. Yes, score 17 in the game.
I don't know. So in general, and if there's a Broncos fan, they make a mad at me. The Denver fan base is out of control. They are the number 1 seed, and they've postured themselves as the Goliath. Or sorry, the David in a David versus Goliath matchup. Makes no sense. I think that defense is awesome. I think Bo Nix has done enough in some games. I will say, oh man, he was awesome against Green Bay.
He was.
He was really good in that particular matchup. And I would assume that was the one win in the end, because the Packers scored 26 in that game. I think that was the best game I've seen Bo Nix play. You get that version of Bo Nix, you're going to blow out Buffalo, frankly. The Bills, and people are on the flip side doing this like big thing of like, oh, well, if Josh Allen can't win this year with no Mahomes, no Burrow, it doesn't matter. He's a bum or something along those lines. They're the 6th seed.
Yeah.
Like, this team is not that good.
Yeah.
Relative to other playoff contenders. Like, they've had some clunkers this year, and it hasn't all been Josh Allen. If Josh Allen isn't superhuman, they're not going to win, which is a conversation we've had with other quarterbacks, not just for our quarterback in the past. So, like, I'm going to go with Buffalo because I think it's fun. And I have a soft spot for Bills Mafia because they're fun. But like, I don't think that this is like a Denver's a fraud, Buffalo's a fraud either way. Like, I think Sean Payton's a damn good coach. Like,
yes, he is.
I think this is the game of the weekend.
Okay. All right. So. I think it's a fun matchup for sure. I mean, you look, Broncos defense, that commands their game plan every single week, like you said. I feel like these are inverted teams almost. Like, the offense is what's making the plays for the Bills every week. The Broncos on the defensive side, they need some help on the offense. On the flip side, Bills need help on defense. Bo Nix isn't making the big plays in crunch time, but Josh Allen does. It's going to be a fun one for sure.
Bills, just overview, like EPA per play-wise, which I think is a great metric for like, hey, is this team good? I'm using the summer sports data here for regular season. Bills are 3rd on offensive EPA per play. Denver is actually top 10 still. For reference, by the way, the Cowboys were 5th this year.
Notable.
Defensively, Denver is 8th. And if you even go look at stuff like takeout turnovers, Denver hasn't forced that many turnovers this year. They've had a down year compared to last year in the takeaway column, which makes me wonder, hey, are they going to have a breakout in the playoffs? Kind of get going there. Buffalo, by the way, is not that good. They're 14th. Passing wise, Bills are 7th. Their run defense has big issues. They're 31st in the NFL. They're worse than the Cowboys' run defense was. So it's them and the Giants.
Bad.
So I would bet they're going to lean heavily on RJ Harvey. That's what I would do if I were Sean Payton. So, all right, super chat time. Matthew, if the offense is top 10 and the defense is top 20, what do you think our record will be next year? So that would actually be the offense takes a slight step back. Not top 5, but the top 10. Defense takes a kind of significant step up. So maybe instead of scoring 28 points per game, you're scoring, I can actually pull up the exact numbers here. Defensively, the Cowboys were 30 points per game this year. That's 32nd. That would be about 24-ish. Just maybe 25-ish if they're top 20. Actually, no, 24 points per game. They'd have won 11 games this past year if they had just allowed 24 points a game. Now, they're probably not going to score as many in that scenario, but I think they get to 10 wins, give or take, somewhere in that ballpark. Maybe 9, depending on the schedule. How consistent is it? But they'd probably be a playoff team. Dr. Shrimp, re-sign Pickens, get Brisker in free agency, get Brian Flores. Please take him out of your division. And also, you're welcome for a higher draft pick. Bear down. Thank you, Dr. Shrimp, and thank you, Chicago Bears. That was a pretty big swing in the end. That pick difference, because the Packers lost, they're picking 20 now, the Cowboys are. The earliest they would have been picking is 25. That's about a third-round pick value there. Cowboys losing against the Giants in Week 18, by the way, knocked the Giants out of the first overall pick down to number 5. Had the Cowboys won that game, they'd be picking 16. So they would have fallen down quite a bit as well. The only way they were not going to be top 10 unless they dropped 2 more games, so it wouldn't have mattered. But it's kind of funny how back-to-back years, low-key, the Cowboys actually tanked things the way they needed to. Super chat menu on today's show. Any super is a shout-out. $20 is a shot. $50 is a beer bong here on our version of Friday. I know it's Thursday, but this is the day before our weekend because I still like to do Sunday videos for you guys. So get those super chats in as we get set up for the next portion of today's show, making sure I've not missed any coaching updates. Now we mentioned all we mentioned was the Anthony Weaver stuff, but that's fine. That's the Giants. That's it. Dane Brugler of The Athletic has dropped his 2026 NFL mock draft. So I wanted to break down the Cowboys picks when big outlets do these, even just round 1 mock drafts. Because the Cowboys have 2 first-round picks, I think it's worth diving into them. So are you excited for the 2026 NFL draft? No day 2 picks for now for the Cowboys, but 2 first-rounders and room to get creative with things in the end. Type me if you are excited. All right, let's get to Dane's mock draft here on The Athletic. Fernando Mendoza, number 1 overall. With Dante Moore going back to school, Arvell Reese goes off the board at 2. This kind of pushes everybody up a spot, by the way, with no quarterback there. Spencer Fano to Arizona, Carnell Tate to from the Buckeyes to the Tennessee Titans. Jordan Tyson, back-to-back receivers. I think we should want receivers to go early, by the way. Francis Mauigoa, it's okay, a lot of your top defenders on the board still. David Bailey goes 7. Jeremiah Love goes 8. Caleb Downs goes number 9. Reuben Bain goes number 10. Another one that kind of low-key stings and hurts the Cowboys. Jermod McCoy goes number 11. So at number 12, Dane Brugler has the Cowboys taking Sonny Styles, the linebacker out of Ohio State, who we have spent time on and will continue to spend time on for good reason. Here's what Dane wrote. The last time the Cowboys had multiple top 20 picks in 2025, they went with 2 defenders, DeMarcus Ware and Marcus Spears. That is the expected approach for the Cowboys in this upcoming draft as well. At 6'4" and 240 pounds with 4.5 speed, Styles is a freak of nature. He doesn't miss tackles, and his read and react skills get better with every game. I do think Dane points out the concern that I have, which is maybe not concern, but like area of growth, better described, because I think it has gotten better. The instincts aren't as crisp as like CJ Allen is. But that doesn't mean that they're bad in the end. I think that they are developing in the correct direction and bode well for the Cowboys as they move forward, or whoever ends up drafting him. I thought at times, especially down the stretches here, he was the better of the two Ohio State linebackers between him and Arvell Reese. There are other guys that you would definitely have interest in. I'd take David Bailey first. I'd take Ruben Bain first. I'd take Caleb Downs first. But those edges and the safety are off the board. I think that makes a linebacker a very valid option. And I do think Styles would be a big boost for a team that clearly needs somebody in the interior. The only time he missed tackles this year, unfortunately, were in the CFP. It was the only time he missed a tackle all year was in the college football playoff. I don't think one game should ever override the 13 before that. Now, we'll get to the Cowboys' second first-round pick here. But should Dallas use both first-round picks on defenders? Y for yes, N for no? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. There were some other players who were on the board here. Mansour Delane, I'll spend some more time on him in a second. Keldrick Falk is your next best edge. Much like Mykel Williams, he is going to be super divisive next year. Caleb Lomu, one of the top tackles left. Avion Terrell, one of the top corners. Makai Lemon, in an ideal world, 3 receivers go off board in the first 11 picks. That would, help kind of override the lack of Dante Moore going in there, and Cowboys don't need a receiver, so it pushes a defender down. I will say, it's early. I've only gotten a couple guys done, like with the initial write-ups pre-combine. I am a massive Mansour Delane fan. I texted one of my other NFL draft guys. He's going to have to talk me out of me putting Mansour Delane in my top 5 this year. Like, I know that the arm length isn't great. I kind of don't care. Your job as a corner is to cover, and he covered great. So I would love Mansour Delane, but I'm not going to be mad if Sonny Styles is the pick at number 12 either. This Cowboys hat is on sale for 50% off at chatsports.com/DAL hat. Link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. 50% off. I don't know for how long, so don't delay. Take advantage of it. chatsports.com/DAL hat. Other picks, and I will say, I think there's a non-zero chance, maybe even it's like 50-50 that Sonny Styles doesn't get to you at 12 anyway. Mansour Delane off the board at 13. Vega Ione out of Penn State to the Ravens. There goes Keldrick Falk. There goes Makai Lemon. Caleb Lomu off the board with the Lions. Kenyon Sadiq off the board to the Vikings. Peter Woods to the Panthers. You don't need a defensive tackle anyway. So with that second first-round pick, Dane has the Cowboys drafting Avion Terrell, the cornerback out of Clemson. If you go, wait, cornerback, Clemson, Terrell. If you didn't already know, you're thinking correctly. This is A.J. Terrell's younger brother, as Dane points out. Terrell doesn't have elite size, and it shows at times against bigger targets. But he does have NFL-level athleticism and competes like a linebacker. Over the last 2 seasons, Terrell has combined for 25 passes defended and 8 forced fumbles. He has a honey badger aura to him. We'll spend some more time here on Terrell and some other options for the Cowboys, but grade that Cowboys mock draft. If they come out of round 1, with what we know so far, of course, knowing it's early in the process, with Sonny Styles and Avion Terrell, how would you grade it? A, B, C, D, or F? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. So Terrell, the numbers look slightly worse this year. Not by a lot, by a little bit. I think part of that, by the way, is the entire Clemson team fell apart this year. You can go back and look at my included here, but everybody's mock drafts. We were TJ Parker top 10, Peter Woods top 10. We were talking about Cade Klubnik as a round 1 pick, Avion Terrell maybe cornerback 1, and Woods has fallen. TJ Parker didn't even make Dane's mock draft. Cade Klubnik went from like maybe ESPN put him as the number 1 overall pick, and he is maybe a day 3 pick because it was that bad. So it wasn't all his fault, I'm saying. My big question is this, because I think Dane nails Terrell. I think that the attitude, the willingness, the undersizedness that he overcomes is something the Cowboys could use. Would Dallas be okay with it? History tells us that, especially early round picks, first 2 rounds, they like drafting corners with length and size and all that good stuff, which I get, but they have correctly pointed out how much they missed Jordan Lewis. That's not saying he's Jordan Lewis, but that type of corner, the guy that punches above his weight class, is needed. Others on the board, I would not rule out Brandon Cisse. He fits the Cowboys mold very well. Caden Proctor was the top offensive lineman. If you wanted an edge, Cassius Howell is there, but there's arm length concerns on that front. Emmanuel McNeil-Warren did sneak into Dane's round 1 mock draft, by the way. He's a fun prospect from Toledo. You'll hear him rise in the pre-draft process, kind of like Quinyon Mitchell did. C.J. Allen, the linebacker from Georgia, I'm a big fan of, but you're not taking 2 linebackers in round 1, I would assume there. Now, again, reminder, you can't fill all your needs with just your first-round pick because you need a corner, a safety, a linebacker, an edge. I can't do that with 2 first-round picks. So, have to do more in free agency too, or do trades. And we'll cover all of that for you here on the Cowboys Report. So if you haven't already, make sure you guys are subscribed. One big picture note I want to make here, just in general, is on the quarterback class. And not that the Cowboys need a quarterback. They don't. They should not take one, especially not early. But Dante Moore not turning pro does hurt the Dallas Cowboys. He was going to go top 5. That was happening for him. Now, he chose not to. I think not because of the NIL money from Oregon, or even only because he was trying to avoid the Jets, but because he's thinking big picture. I don't think he was ready. I was not going to have a first-round grade on Dante Moore, and I think he was going to go in round 1 because of quarterback needs across the board and the upside there. But by going back to school, even if he goes, pick 7, if he boosts his chances at a second contract, well, that's worth the discount on the rookie contract scale 10 times over. But more importantly, this guy off topic there, the Cowboys, that's one less player going before you. That's one more edge off the board, or it's one more linebacker, or it's another defensive piece like Hale Downs who maybe could have slid to you, but he gets sniped 1 pick before you go on the clock. What we want now is Ty Simpson to get a lot of buzz. Now, Ty was hurt down the stretch for Alabama. He's now since confirmed that. He looked awesome before Halloween. Post-Halloween, he looked pretty bad, frankly. He went 21 to the Steelers here. And that is, I think, a very real range of outcomes here. Which, if he doesn't go top 12, then you maybe don't want him to go off the board yet. Maybe. Because maybe a team wants to move up and snipe the Steelers. Or Pittsburgh moves up and gets antsy. That's all hypothetical stuff, but it is stuff to kind of keep in the back of your mind. Mailbag time here on the show. Use hashtag Cowboys or skip the line altogether via Super Chat. Let's put Ecuador Man's Super Chat up here outside of the mailbag. So, make sure I haven't missed any news. I see a bunch of tweets on my timeline, which always scares me. Aaron Whitecotton is going to interview, or is going to be the East-West Shrine Game defense corner, which is cool. Yeah, Jesse Minter interviewing for Atlanta. That's fine. Robert Sala interviewing for the Dolphins job. We mentioned that Lindo Wells will be the head coach East-West Shrine Game, which is fun. But that's just noteworthy on the end. Use hashtag Cowboys. Skip the line altogether via Super Chat. DeLunatic, JW Chosen, we will hit on the mailbag, by the way. Ecuador Man says, come on, Tom. Oh, no, not that one. Nothing against Dane, he says, but I'm going Delane and CJ Allen. That's what I would do, too. And then, again, we're talking like 6 versus 5 or something, like on this, maybe 9 versus 8 on the scale. That would be my preference, because I really like those 2 guys a lot. Like, I'm probably a bit higher than I think consensus on Malcolm Delane and a bit higher than I think on consensus than CJ Allen. I think that helps your defense so much. I know you might get skittish over an LSU corner, but he was awesome this year. I would be fully on board with a Malcolm or Mansour Delane and CJ Allen combination. Oh, did I say Malcolm previously? I don't know why I did that, but I would be fully in on either of those options. On really either, but definitely yours there. All right, Super Chat menu. Any super is a shout out. $20 is a shot. $50 is a beer bong. That is the super chat menu as we dive into today's live mailbag. As soon as AP gives you the thumbs up, we will dive into that here on the Cowboys Report. A super thanks to get us going from Hunter M. Tom, does getting down to 12 and delaying at 20, along with, say, Hendrickson and insert free agent linebacker, fix the defense? Assuming a good defensive coordinator hire, of course, one can dream. I don't know if, depends on, define fix. Are you instantly top 10? No, probably not. Are you significantly better? I kind of think so. Are you enough to be a playoff contender? Yeah, I kind of think so as well. Is that a lot to ask for? Yeah, because there's a scenario in which both of those guys are off the board before you're on the clock at 12. But that does really intrigue me as, in terms of planning-wise, yeah, I like that idea quite a bit. Now, if you have not already, hit me up on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney. We continue to grow that side of the social media platform. So hit me up. I still call it Twitter because come on, X is silly. Hit that follow button on Twitter at WhatGoingDowney. DragonBot TV 71. I wouldn't be, this is a joke, if the Jones boys hire Jason Witten or Jason Garrett for DC, something stupid that they would do. Yeah, I think you're joking, of course. By the way, Jason Garrett getting a Titans head coaching interview is still so funny to me. I don't know why. Congrats to Jason Witten, though, being the new Oklahoma tight ends coach, and I assume his son will also go to Oklahoma, the 5-star, by the way, which is pretty crazy to think about. I would not be surprised if at some point down the line, Jason Witten is a Cowboys head coach. I think the Jones boys would love that, especially Jerry Jones. We went through that saga last year. It's just he's going to work his way up, and it's as long as it's not now or next year. 10 years from now, sure, he's probably earned it by then. We'll see how it plays out. I get a bit skittish sometimes there. Jonathan Kelly, $10 super thanks. Thank you, Jonathan. Tom for GM, don't give me that I'm just a YouTuber crap. You could manage this team way better than Jerry ever could. Start the petition. For the record, though, I am just a YouTuber. That's why I want to be owner. I'm even higher than just GM. I don't want to settle for GM responsibilities. Let me be owner. Let me be actually in charge of everything. My promise to everyone as Cowboys fans, if the Cowboys don't win a Super Bowl within 10 years of me in control as owner, I will sell the team, and I will profit the money so it's a win-win. Who says no? Pick an owner. TD for me, JB for the Jones boys. Obviously, mostly in jest, but it's fun. So pick your owner in the comments of today's show. Jotman, a $5 super chat, says, ready to lose Jim Leonhard to the Giants, and when he does, ready to learn Jonathan Gannon. I do feel like Jonathan Gannon is a logical fallback option for the Cowboys. I will say, I don't think it's as cut and dry as we are accustomed to on the Cowboys defensive coordinator search side. They're doing a real search, guys. I don't think the Giants are the only spot that end up emerging potentially as a fit for Jim Leonhard. There's at least 11 defensive coordinator openings. Could become 12, could become 13 or 14 or 15, depending on who goes where in the head coaching carousel. So I don't think it's just the Giants you'd be aware of lurking for Jim Leonhard. But the Cowboys have the advantage because they've already interviewed him, at least virtually. Matthew, if the offense is top 10, defense is top 20, what will the record be next year? So that's the defense going from the worst to below average. But that's probably that wasn't a touchdown plus difference between last year. Top 5 to top 10, a few point difference there. But you probably win 10 games. Over under 9.5, 10.5, over under the win total there. And you probably actually are in the midst of a playoff spot. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. You and I, whether starting a new routine, making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard. But in life and on Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure playoff matchups every weekend, hoops action almost every night, it never stops. And Prize Picks lets you take control. Prize Picks now offers early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. How about a college football Prize Picks lineup? Carson Beck, less than passing yards. The deep ball has not been good for him this year. Elijah Surratt, I like the more than 2.5. That's kind of a low number. It's the Goblin line. I'm a big fan of it. Fernando Mendoza, more than 223.5 passing yards as well. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Links in the comments section and the description of today's show. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS. prizepicks.com/CLNS. Dr. Shrimp, a Bears fan, mind you, says, re-sign Pickens, get Jaquan Brisker in free agency, and get Brian Flores. Please take him out of our division. Also, you are welcome for the higher draft pick. I appreciate that, Dr. Shrimp. First off, thank you. There was a 5-pick difference there for the Cowboys. Good job. I would be stunned if the Cowboys did anything other than at least franchise tag George Pickens. That's not what they've indicated. Doesn't make sense for their roster overall. You got everything you wanted and more. You take it and run and work out a long-term deal, hopefully before that July deadline, which is the Cowboys, who knows. If you could somehow steal Flores, man, that'd be awesome. Will they be able to? I have my doubts, but it'd be cool to make a run at it, at least, in the end. Lunatic, 20 plus offensive lineman TJ Bass for defensive end Max Crosby. Who says no? The Raiders do. The Raiders do. TJ Bass is a RFA, I believe. So he's not tough to do a tag and trade, sign and trade there. It's not how it works. I think there'd be a team in the market to give you more than just pick 20 for Max Crosby. The asking price is still going to be high, even if the Raiders decide to embrace the rebuild, because essentially what you're doing is trading Max Crosby for Cassius Howe or Keldrick Falk and getting TJ Bass. That's a pretty bad trade for the Raiders. Yes, they save money, but it's not that great of a deal. Deck Attack, Mike Tomlin as defensive coordinator. Just not going to happen. I think he's going to go do TV and follow in the footsteps of his brother, Omar Epps. I think it's more likely it's a joke if you don't know what jokes are, by the way, guys. He's not going to go be a defensive coordinator. Now, next year, I bet he's the Bucs head coach, and he goes back to where he's coached before. They move on from Todd Bowles. Would anyone be surprised? And it'd be a trade, by the way, because he is under contract with the Steelers still technically, much like how Sean Payton and technically Bruce Arians was as well all those years ago. So it's not realistic. Now, realistic names only. Who do you want as the next Cowboys defensive coordinator? Let me know in the comments section of today's show. JW Chosen, does it make sense to mock Down's top 5 teams that need an edge or a linebacker and get safeties in round 2 or 3? Or is Dallas at 12 more realistic? Well, you also need edge and maybe offensive lines. It depends on how those teams grade those players. Do they think Caleb Downs is a better player than Spencer Fano or Francis Mauigoa? Do they think that Caleb Downs is a much better player than David Bailey or Ruben Bain? I bet at least one of those teams probably say yes. Now, I'm not going to put him in very many top 5 mock drafts. But the Jets could do it. Cardinals, maybe. Titans, maybe. Giants, just take the best player available. Those are possible. I mean, shoot, guys. John Harbaugh saw what Kyle Hamilton did for his defense. He's probably thinking something similar there with Caleb Downs. So, potentially, Browns and Commanders and Saints and Chiefs and Bengals, those teams could use a safety. That's why I think even though it's safety value, gives you a chance at it, it's not maybe the most likely outcome. Steven, when do you think this search will end? It's a great question, and honestly, I don't know. It might take a while. It might take for the head coaching stuff to kind of get its way sorted out and let things play out on that end. I would not be surprised if it took 2 or 3 weeks at minimum. And they go, okay, well, Jim Leonhard wants to see how the Vance Joseph stuff plays out. Durante Jones wants to see how the Brian Flores stuff plays out. Christian Parker or Jonathan Gannon want to interview with these other defensive coordinator jobs as well. There are a lot of dominoes to fall. I don't know if you're the second domino. I don't know if you're the 5th domino. I don't know if you're the 12th domino to fall in the end. There's a lot of moving pieces here that it's just going to require patience. I don't know how long that patience will be, but it's going to require it in the end. Help us hit our next goal, 242,000 subs here on the Cowboys Report. If you haven't already, hit that sub button, youtube.com/CowboysTV. Crimson Cowboy is back. What trends are you noticing from potential defensive coordinators background-wise and schematically? We go to the list 10 of all the interviews, by the way. Seen several guys with the Parcells, Belichick tree, more odd front stuff and match coverage in the future. We'll see. I do think you're onto something specific with the match coverage stuff. I think the odd front stuff in certain roles as well. The two main trends are less so schematic trends, although, look, Jim Leonhard is a Rex Ryan tree guy in the end. Gannon, really more so than others, and even Christian Parker kind of actually do subscribe more to the Fangio style of coaching tree. Covington is a Belichick tree guy. Ulbrich is a good match for everything, but he also did a bunch of match coverage stuff. The background-wise really does stand out to me. And that is, these are mostly young guys. They're all young, frankly. They are college coaching background, almost all of them, and most of them are secondary-focused guys, which I think makes sense. They want to fix the back-end stuff. I do think match coverage is something to keep an eye out for. Like, that fits Leonhard, that fits Ulbrich, etc. Odd front stuff also fits Jim Leonhard. So odd front, if you don't know, it means like think 3-4. It's not always a 3-4. Sometimes it's 4-3 over, 4-3 under, but it's not that big of a difference in this day and age of the NFL. Match coverage is higher level zone stuff where, yeah, sure, it's cover 4, cover 3, but like if there's one guy on your side, you're basically in man. Like that's kind of, it's a simplistic way of describing it, but that's what it is. I think also some more simulated pressures. Common trend on those guys, some of the top candidates as well. It's all good stuff as far as I'm concerned. From fix the defense. Should the Cowboys draft a quarterback this year? No. I'm trying to think of how to put this delicately. This quarterback class is bad. Like it's real bad. As of filming, I don't think John Mateer turned pro. I think he's off the board. So like the 2026 quarterback class, obviously you're gonna have Fernando Mendoza is gonna go number 1 overall. And then I think Ty Simpson is quarterback 2, who probably goes round 1. And then it's like Garrett Nussmeier coming off a bad year and hurt. Carson Beck, who screams backup. Cade Klubnik, who was bad. Drew Aller, who was bad and hurt. Diego Pavia isn't an NFL quarterback. Trinidad Chambliss might be a top 4 or 5 quarterback in this class, but like I think he's limited from like an actual passing perspective. You want to go gamble on the upside guy and like Taylon Green? Yeah, but like, isn't he just Arkansas Logan Thomas? Like, is he, which just makes him Arkansas Joe Milton, by the way. Like this class is not, it's not a class to be trying to find a quarterback late. It's just not very good. So what is your confidence level in Joe Milton? Scale it for me from 1 to 10 in the comments section of today's show. I think you let it ride with Milton and maybe revisit next year. JW Chosen, trade or cut Clark/Osa for a 3rd round pick. Well, there's no cutting them to get a 3rd round pick. That's not in the cards. I don't know. Maybe you could flip him for a 3rd. There's contract issues there. Kenny Clark's a bit older. Like they're not the cheapest players either. I think it's fine to explore the market. I don't know what their true values are in a trade. Maybe it is a 3rd, in which case, like, I would have some interest in it. Because it would help you fill a different spot. But if you want to run odd fronts all year, like we mentioned, and do the 5-down lineman stuff, hey, going after, and keeping all 3 guys and restructuring those contracts, that's fine. I don't know if you have very many other trade candidates that would fetch you anything close to a 3rd round pick, by the way. So if you do want actual draft capital, those are 2 names that make sense of potential guys you could flip. Otherwise, I don't think you're going to have the options out there. Brandon, Downs and Allen are my dream draft duo. If possible, put together a hypothetical fit staff with Leonhard as DC. Handful of other coaches interviewed could be in the running for assistant coaches. We can go back to that candidate list again, by the way. Yeah, I think there are some names that clearly stand out, like have ties. Charlie Bolin is one of them. They coach together at Illinois. Guys that are you're not going to be able. I don't think Gannon would come in a linebacker's role or something along those lines, or a secondary role. maybe Ephraim Banda is an option of like, depending how the Browns coaching staff shakes out, maybe he could end up jumping over. Like, that's possible. Zachary Orr, if he doesn't get a DC job somewhere, maybe. Bolin would be your potential linebackers coach. I don't think they're going to be able to steal DeMarcus Covington, so I think some of those guys, and then Aaron Whitecotton, obviously, could be a candidate. And I'm pretty sure the Cowboys would be able to let Leonhard pick some of his guys as well. Last one from DeLunatic. What does the Kenny Clark extension look like? Great question. The big number is you take his like $21-ish million base salary, and that's your guaranteed figure. That's what it is. You probably are trying to limit the amount of new guaranteed money. It's probably that figure, maybe a little bit of next year's figure. Is it like a 3-year, $60 million extension, but like 20 of that is already taken care of with the guaranteed money? I would not be surprised. I think that the Kenny Clark one and Quinn Williams, by the way, are a bit complicated. And that's probably something you would try to figure out with their agents around the combine. That would make quite a bit of sense. But I don't have a great answer for you because it's an extension for a possible cut candidate. Like, it might not be as expensive in terms of like actual real cash. It can be kind of fake and backloaded more than you might expect. All right, the Super Chat menu, excuse me. Any Super Chat is a shout out. $20 is a shot, and $50 is a beer bong. Get your Super Chats in here in the comment section of today's show. Who we got? 4 for the 49ers, S for the Seahawks. Let me know in the comment section of today's show. Of note, the Seahawks suddenly adding Sam Darnold to the injury report today with an oblique injury. It's a new issue. Using shout out to Greg Bell, Seahawks beat writer, showing the Theragun being used by Sam Darnold. So that's noteworthy. A lot of times, I don't know. It's concerning when that is suddenly a new injury. Like, that suddenly popping up is red flag. Who you got? 4 for the Niners, S for the Seahawks. I think we're all cheering for the Seahawks, right? We don't want the 49ers to win?
I don't want the Niners to win this one. They're not a fun team to me. I don't love this quarterback matchup. I could just be a hater, but I mean, Purdy has proven himself. Darnold in the playoffs, what's the saying? Innocent till proven guilty. Let's flip that around. He's got to prove himself in the playoffs, man. I love this Seahawks team. The defense is unbelievably good. Maybe only second to the Texans this year. And their point differential going into the playoffs is shocking. Like, they beat the hell out of teams. Good teams, bad teams, all year long they've done it. But I worry about Sam Darnold when it comes down to it.
I agree. I want to see him do it in a big moment. Now, this Niners defense, I will say, is super decimated.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's highly, highly concerning.
What Salah's done with what he has is phenomenal.
So we'll see. I'll be cheering for the Seahawks, though. Get your votes in the comment section for me of today's show. Troy Daniels. You think Morgan Scalley could have been a good DC in the NFL had he not been promoted to Utah's head coach? Whoever is our DC is better than Flus. Yes, I think he would have been a good DC. I will point this out there. I do wonder if some teams would have been a bit scared off of the suspension he had a couple years ago for the slur they used. That was never going to be a headline again in Utah because they went through it once and they accepted it. It'd have been front page for whoever hired him. So that's it's a noteworthy one there. But I think defensive mind, he's super good. I'm a bit worried about Utah right now though because they lost a lot of good guys in the portal. Very clear that like they essentially forced out their head coach to make the transition to Morgan, who had been their guy for a long time as like the up and coming guy, but noteworthy. Lunatic is Bland outsider in the slot next year. F filthy, as always. We'll see. I don't know yet. I don't think the Cowboys know yet. I think that they want to see how the offseason plays out. He can do both. I ran the numbers a while ago. Was like down to down was more consistent in the slot as a cover corner but variance, upside, big play-wise, he was better on the outside. So that's where he got more of his picks. Very good, though, in both spots up until this past year where he was hurt the entire time. And frankly, I wonder how much we can judge anybody on that front. That entire defense was really bad under Matt Eberflus. Lunatic, thank you very much. Joshua Castillo, what would make you trade the 12th pick? Who's on the board? Like, it's two parts. Who's left? What am I being offered? If I'm really picked over defensively, if like all the receivers are left and all my defenders are gone, like, okay, maybe I'll try to trade down for a team that wants the top receiver left. If all my defenders are there, well, okay, maybe I can get a bit greedy and trade down and one or two spots and get another pick for myself. Or if there's one guy I really want that's left, I'm not trading it. So there's a lot of different like elements that all play into it that I would have to kind of keep my eye out for. Appreciate that one, my friend. Very curious how things play out on the Sam Darnold side. I have money on Seattle. I might see if I can bail on that one real quick here because it's probably going to be off book, but I am it scares me a bit. Thank you, Joshua. Manuel, what about Anthony Hill? Where do you have him graded? Anthony Hill's a tough. What's their AP? AP said third round. I think that's the low end. Anthony Hill he's not going to be for everybody. And specifically for this team, and I'm probably over-indexing specifically for the Cowboys with what I've seen in recent years, I get a bit anxious about the instincts. Not that they're not like Kenneth Murray bad, but like there are some similarities. Like he is at his best, I think, moving downhill and being a rusher at times in the same way Kenneth Murray was. And I think that's kind of your downside outcome, where the instincts don't come along. There's plenty of good plays on film. He was better last year when he was healthy as well. But I do get a bit skittish with Anthony Hill of just like, I think he's going to test super well. Not everyone does. I think he's a bit of a divisive linebacker. I don't think he should be lower than 5th on your linebacker board, but he's a clear notch below Sonny Styles and TJ Allen for me, and kind of in that secondary tier. There's a lot of stuff to like and some stuff to be scared of. I think that he has the traits. I worry about some of the down-to-down consistency. The Lunatic, bigger impact. Cornerback at 12, defensive end at 20. Fire Jirai as GM, who of course is, or fire Jerry as GM, I should say, not his GM. He is the GM. Depends on who you get there. My concern is like your cornerback at 12 is Mansour Lane, who I love, but your edge at 20 is like Cassius Howell, who I like, but I don't love the same way. So I would think corner at 12 is probably a bigger impact for you. JW Chosen. Can Dallas be aggressive, trading up or unlikely? No, I definitely can't do anything because that was a bonus bet. I can't bail on that one. Yeah, that stinks. What'd that line do? I'm pulling it up right now. Sorry, this is bad. Hasn't really changed yet. Noteworthy. Look, they can be. I don't know if they will be. They don't have the draft pick capital. Like they have no second and no third. That makes it really tough to like jump up in round one without getting really creative and borderline reckless with it. So my gut says no. My gut says no. That would not be the likely outcome. Let's check in again closer to the draft. And maybe they spent all their money in free agency for once, and they can do some things. We'll see. Chris B. Bad feeling Gannon is going to get hired. Not exciting. Not exciting is a very good way of framing it, frankly. Like I don't. He's not a guarantee to be bad, but there is the threat of it, and because it wasn't that great in Arizona, there were bad moments in Philadelphia as well. He does some fun stuff. He does some of those like quarters coverage, 3-high look that I actually find super intriguing. His teams were always decimated by injuries in Arizona. Isn't the coach kind of to blame on that one as well? In general, there's nothing inherently wrong with the failed head coach becoming the defensive coordinator. It worked with Dan Quinn for the most part. It didn't work at all with Matt Eberflus. But I think Sunday we'll do my list, or maybe Monday morning, of like ranking everybody in there. Early vibes, like go back and cheat here. I don't know if he's going to crack the top 5. He might be right in the middle. He's right of like we played it conservatively, and that kind of scares me a little bit. Coming up on today's Cowboys Report, we're going to talk some fun ideas for the offseason. That includes trading for TJ Watt. It has been suggested. I wanted to take a peek at it. Signing Travis Etienne if you don't retain Javonte Williams, and what the DaRon Bland outlook looks like as we move forward. Now, for more offseason coverage of the boys, the team, not the TV show, of course, hit that sub button if you haven't already, youtube.com/CowboysTV. So credits into the Star because they pitched this idea first, and I've seen others suggest it, not so much specifically for the Cowboys, of trading for TJ Watt. And I wanted to look at okay, is it realistic? Like, could you actually pull this off? So let's get into it. I think the Steelers doing a reset actually makes a ton of sense. They have a new head coach coming in. It is an older core. There's no real quarterback answer. TJ Watt, I think, would at least net a first-round pick for you. And that would allow them to really start the rebuild properly. Now, he missed some time this year with a kind of a fluke injury, frankly. His pass breakup numbers are always super high, but his TFL's dipped. His sacks have dipped in recent years. His pressure rate is actually not very good this year. Now, he gets plenty of doubles and plenty of triples. That's all fair. He does a great job getting his hands up to knock down passes. But there actually have been some signs for TJ Watt of, hey, he hasn't been as crisp, actually. At 31 years old, is he starting to show signs of decline? That is something you have to mention here. Not because you don't want the elite level edge, who is still a top 5, top 10 edge if you were ranking all of them, but as players age, they don't have the same juice anymore. So I did want to acknowledge, because I know everyone's like, ooh, TJ Watt, hell yeah. And the answer probably is like, you should pursue this. Let's be serious here. It's TJ Watt. But there are just some of my metrics like, hey, maybe Pittsburgh, maybe for those reasons, Pittsburgh would actually be willing to entertain in a way that they never would have previously for how much he has meant to that team and that city. Now, would you trade for TJ Watt? Y for yes, N for no. Let me know in the comments section of today's show, and we'll go more in depth on it next. The biggest issue for a TJ Watt trade, I don't think, is actually the cost of it. And at his age, it's probably not 2 first-round picks the same way it was for Micah. But my first thought was, okay, it's the contract. Well, folks, this is actually kind of a tradable contract. So he's owed $42 million on the cap in 2026. The dead money for Pittsburgh is $30 million. It's a lot of money. They would save $12 million. It is not an unmovable contract the way that other players of this caliber have an unmovable contract. The Cowboys cap it. Next 2 years will be $32 million. Then 2028 is $36.05. The 2026 and 2027 salaries are guaranteed. So at minimum, 2 years, $64 million. That is a lot of money in the end. But just like Max Crosby, why not call? See what the market is. See what the value is. You happen to be in a unique spot where you have 2 first-round picks. Now, you can't trade next year's, but you have 2 first-round picks this year. So why not call? Just see what the asking price is. My guess is Pittsburgh says no, and they don't do it, and there's no real reason for us to get our hopes up. But I was a little bit surprised, frankly. Look at that contract and go, okay, it's actually tradable. And for Pittsburgh, maybe they should rebuild. Now, teams have a tough time selling that. And that's often how they make business decisions in the end. So I'm not going to get my hopes up. And I'd rather have Max Crosby, who will cost you more. But I thought it was at least worth a little brief conversation on. Today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. Whether you're starting a new routine or making player picks for the first time, trying something new can be hard. But in life and on Prize Picks, it always feels good to be right. With high-pressure playoff matchups every weekend, hoops action almost every night, it never stops. And Prize Picks lets you take control. Prize Picks now has early payouts. If your player gets off to a hot start, you have the option to cash out those winnings before the game even finishes. With the new social feeds feature, you can share prize picks with your friends and copy lineups from winners with a single click. Copy the ones you like, use as inspiration, or whatever. One of the 3-pick power plays this weekend, Caleb Williams, more than passing yards, Colston Loveland, more than receiving yards, and Puka Nacua, more than a half touchdown. If you haven't already, go download the Prize Picks app today and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS. $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. This idea from Bleacher Report. They listed the Cowboys as a top landing spot for Travis Etienne, specifically mentioning if Javonte Williams leaves, something along those lines. I think those two players, among the top free agent backs, are kind of intertwined here. Etienne had one of his best years ever. Impactful 4.3 yards per carry, big plays, more touchdowns, 1,000 yards. Third time in 4 years now, he has rushed for over 1,000 yards, a figure Javonte Williams has never hit before. It is worth mentioning, this was also Javonte Williams' best season ever, and this one by a significant margin in the end. Now, the stat rankings, we updated this post-Week 18 since Javonte did not play. He obviously fell down in most of these metrics. One of the ones need to go up there. Top 10 in carries, in yards, 13th in average, 7th in touchdowns, tied for 10th in 10-plus yard runs, 6th in yards after contact, 17th in RYO, that's rushing yards over expected, 8th in EPA per carry, 10th in success rate, just the one fumble. Williams' advanced numbers, if you value those, were awesome. Now, Etienne had similar yards, but his advanced numbers weren't nearly as good, actually, folks. 29th in yards to contact, 32nd in rush yards over expected, 33rd in EPA per carry, 41st in success rate, was a bit feast or famine at times, and of note, there were 48 qualifying backs on next-gen stats. It's noteworthy to me. My thoughts here in a second, but pick your running back. Who would you rather sign? Assume the money's even-ish here. JW for Javonte Williams, TE for Travis Etienne. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. The production specifically this year, not for their careers, favors Javonte Williams over Travis Etienne. I also know for a fact that Javonte Williams works in Dallas. And I would lean towards re-signing the devil I know versus the devil I don't. Although, these are both good players, so maybe devil isn't the right analogy, but you guys know the saying. If Travis Etienne is available for a similar cost, I wouldn't be mad at that. I'm a sucker for the explosive playbacks. And Etienne didn't have the most explosive play this year, but he has the juice to do it. But I would actually kind of lean more towards Javonte specifically for this Dallas Cowboys team. Let's go to DaRon Bland. So he underwent his second foot surgery in as many years on his left foot earlier this week. The reporting from ESPN, i.e. the Cowboys, they leaked it, is that he should be ready for the offseason program, but their main priority is making sure he's back for training camp, which, hey, it's concerning when you have 3 foot injuries now and 2 surgeries on that left foot. That is noteworthy to me. So what is your concern level? Because I think we should be concerned here. Foots for a corner is not a good thing. Concern level for the Cowboys, I guess unless you're Rex Ryan. Concern level over to DaRon Bland, 1 to 10 in the comments section of today's show. You paid him. You need him to be good. The best version of DaRon Bland has been awesome and would be worth the money on a kind of unique contract, which we'll hear in a little bit. But the last 2 years, he's got about a season's worth of games, 11 PBUs, and 1 pick. That is not nearly as good as what it was his first 2 seasons. And that's frustrating. And the coaching staff and the injuries certainly an impact there, but he's the player. The player gets blamed. He gave him a big fat contract this year. 4 years, $90 million. That's $22.5 million on average. But it is kind of a unique contract. And I'll explain why here as we go through this stuff in general. The guaranteed money is less than $50 million. There is a potential out if healthy, for 2 years, $36.4 million. That's a lot less than the franchise tags would have been. So that is noteworthy to me. Here's how the contract breaks down. Cap hit the first number, dead money. If you cut him, the second one. Can't cut him this year. You can't cut him next year. 17.4 versus 30.6. There's your out. $13.2 million in dead money versus a $17.4 million cap hit. That cap hit plummets in 2028 to $11.2 million. I'll explain why in a minute. $8.8 million in dead money, $15.4 in 2029, a bunch of voids at the back end, and $28 million in dead money in 2020-30 if you don't extend him or cut him previously. And there is a reason for that. It would be if he plays out the entirety of his contract only. After 2027, the reason those cap hits are so low, DaRon Bland's contract turns into option bonuses. I like it when teams use option bonuses. It's essentially a restructure built into the contract ahead of time. They are not guaranteed right now. They are not. That is the decision time on the DaRon Bland contract. It becomes 19 and $21 million due in 2028 and 2029 via option bonus. They're not. That's why that dead money is so high. You're not paying it to him right now. The only remaining guarantees are this past year, 2026, and his 2027 salary is guaranteed for injury right now, which doesn't apply to the surgery, would be next offseason. Fully guaranteed on the 5th day of the league year. The way the contract is designed is to restructure it this offseason. You can restructure DaRon Bland's $12 million base salary to save around $8.63. It can be a bit less depending on how you actually do it in the end. But that is the restructuring angle. It changes the contract to this, where the cap hit jumps in 2027, so does the dead money in 2027. But remember, you're paying that base salary no matter what. It's guaranteed. You have to pay it out. It doesn't make sense to, frankly, I would argue, not restructure it if you're going to pay it out. Because you could just, instead of regular June 1st cut, make it a post-June 1st. It doesn't change the money you owe. It just changes when it ends up hitting your books. And you'd rather have $1 today than $1 tomorrow because the dollar today is more valuable because of the salary cap. And then the option bonuses come due. Maybe you play out 2027. But that part of it is, you want to restructure a hurt guy. That's valid still because it makes it easier to get out in 2027. You're just paying more for that luxury right now. Best head coach in the NFC East. Let me know in the pinned poll as well. DQ, NS, JH, BS for Brian Schottenheimer. Let me know in the comments section of today's show. Sam Darnold does say he thinks he's going to play. Felt something during routes on air, but thinks he's going to be fine. Yeah, Fred Warner will not play. Correct. Yeah, not going to play at all. Super chat time. $5 from Chris B. Shotty got to fight for his pick a DC because they missed playoffs again. He's probably gone. This is a chance for how good of a head coach he is. I don't think he gets a second DC hire. Now, maybe it's not fired for this year, but man, if they miss the playoffs three straight years in a row and the defense still stinks, who is gonna want to become a defensive coordinator for a head coach in the final year of his contract, by the way, because I think it's a 4-year deal, on the hot seat? You're not getting somebody good. This is the higher shot he gets. I don't think if it works, then he gets another one, right? But if it's bad, he's gonna pay for it in the end. You don't get to hire 3 defensive coordinators unless you lose one of them for good reasons. That's the only way it happens in the end. We'll have more Cowboys coverage for you right here on the channel. And that's why, by the way, Shotty is super involved in this search. Hit that sub button if you haven't already. More free Cowboys videos for you each and every single day. Hit that sub button right now.